Hey guys, what's going on? And hope everybody's doing good out there today. Welcome back to the channel. And today I want to do the second part on the knot video that I did 2 days ago. If you guys saw the video I did a couple days ago, I was talking about what I think is the best knot for the fluorocarbon fishing line, which is a double uni knot. And of course, I had a ton of people say that that wasn't the double uni knot. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, doesn't make any difference. Aaron Martin showed me the knot 15 years ago. He called it a double uni knot, so I call it a double uni knot. So anyway, I think the double uni knot is the best knot, as you can see in that video I did. But today I'm going to show you guys the knot I use for monofilament fishing line and braided fishing line, which is the same knot I use for both. And first of all, I know when I start this video here and when I give it, I'm going to get a lot of a lot of blowback, people saying, oh, that's not the best knot, this is better, blah, blah, blah. You're going to get that all the time. That's fine. If you guys want to throw a different knot, if you want to tie a different knot, if you don't think this is the best, go for it. By all means, tie the knot you want to tie. The knot I'm going to show you here is the knot that I have experimented with extensively. I mean, I've tied every knot that you can with braid and monofilament. I've experimented in practice, tournament, fun fishing, and this is the knot that is the most efficient. It's the strongest. It's the best knot for those two situations. So I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, it's the Palomar knot. It's just the old Palomar knot. And what I want to do a little bit is I want to go into explaining to you why it's the best knot. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, it's super simple. It's one of the simplest knots you have out there. You basically just come through the hook eye twice, just like we did on the double uni knot. In fact, most knots you do this. Come through like that, and then you just tie a simple overhand knot, just like that, and then you come back through the opening and pull the loose end tight. The quickest, most simplest knot there is out there. Another thing I'll give you guys a little tip on braid when you're tying the Palomar knot with it is make sure you don't cut the line off, right at the knot, because sometimes there's a little bit of fray and slippage. So I like to leave like 1/4 of an inch or so like that. But there it is, that's a Palomar knot. So Palomar knot, it's probably the one that a lot of people graduate to. They usually start out with the clinch knot, they go to the Palomar knot, and then a lot of people upgrade to more complex knots simply because they read that they're better knots. And while I agree that the Palomar knot is not the knot for fluorocarbon, we talked about it in the video I did before, conclusively I came up with the fact that it doesn't make any difference the knot that you use on the braid to fluorocarbon that is any better than the Palomar knot. I have not seen it myself. There's a couple advantages I like about the Palomar knot. Number one is when you're using monofilament or braided line, a lot of times you're tending to use a little bit heavier line. And if you tie other type of knots, like the double uni knot, whatever you like to tie, they tend to be a little bit bulky on the head of them. And the Palomar knot is it's a pretty small knot for as strong as it is. So that's one of the reasons I like to tie it. Secondly, when I'm using a braided line, a lot of people think that you need the snell knot, the braided line, especially for punching and because of the hook rotation coming up. I'm not convinced of that. I mean, I've experimented with it extensively, and 10 or 15 years ago when I started snelling my straight shank flipping hooks, because a lot of people in Florida were saying it was more effective, I started snelling my hooks and I started using the Palomar knot like I had been using, and I didn't notice any difference at all in the amount of hookups and landing ratio I got with the snell knot. In fact, I think I maybe even lost more fish with the snell knot. And I wasn't really sure, if it was my own experimentation or not until I saw a video that Brian Polinick did about 3 or 4 years ago with Wired to Fish on that very subject. And if you guys have seen that video, you'll know that Brandon's the same way. He's not convinced that the snell knot is any better than the Palomar knot, for hooking the fish. And he has a long detailed video on why that is. So in my opinion, the Palomar knot is the best knot for braid. I mean, it's the quickest knot to tie. I have never one single time broke it ever in the history I've been flipping and throwing, you know, braided line. I use it on any braided line that I throw. I don't care if I'm throwing, you know, 15-pound test braid on a floating worm, or if I'm fishing 65-pound test braid punching mats. I use a Palomar knot all the time on braided line, and frog fishing, flipping, whatever. It works really good for me. I don't have any problem with it. So I have no reason to go with a Snell knot or any other type of knot. I've tried to tie the double uni knot on the Palomar, on the braided line, but again, the knot size is way too big. It's like 3 times the size as a Palomar. So the Palomar, it sets good in the bait. It doesn't stick out too much. It's strong. I don't lose fish on it. #1 knot. Same deal with the monofilament line. You know, I've tried to, when I'm using mono most of the time anymore, I'm throwing it on top water, and I'm throwing it on 15 to 20-pound tests. Sometimes I'll use 25-pound test mono on a big glide bait or something like that. And if you're fishing 25-pound test mono, which is a lot bigger diameter than the fluorocarbon, if you throw a knot like the double uni knot on there, again, the knot is giant. I mean, it's absolutely huge. It's bigger than the eye of the hook. So the Palomar knot is a nice small knot for that. One of the big keys you want to remember when you're tying a Palomar knot on monofilament line, make sure you wet the line with your mouth, because you don't want that friction coming down on there. If you have problems with it, it's usually the way you tied it dry. So make sure that knot's wet. But I just don't have any problems losing fish on the monofilament line. It's not only the knot size that I like about the Palomar on mono, but also when I'm fishing monofilament line, most of the time I'm not fishing it on a short line where I'm reeling down and jacking the fish hard. I'm pulling into the fish. So I don't need that shock absorption that the double uni knot gives you a lot of times. And you know, back when I was using monofilament to flip a lot of times I was using the old double clinch knot, and I didn't have much problems with that too. But if I was flipping with mono today, I would still use the Palomar knot with it. So anyway, guys, that's just my experience with it. I'm sure I'm going to get some blowback on this from guys that think it's not the best knot. That's great. Like I said, if you have something better, fine, use it. This is what I use. This is what I've experimented with. This is what works for me. And I'm pretty confident if you use the same setup, if you use just the Palomar knot, tie it correctly on braided line and monofilament, you're not going to have any problem. And you can tie that knot so quick. I mean, it's so quick. And one of the good things about a quick knot, guys, if you have a knot that you can tie super fast and super quick, it encourages you to retie more. I think a lot of problems anglers have, especially all you guys that use braid to fluorocarbon, which you know I never do, that sort of, it sort of like keeps you from wanting to retie as much, because the more you retie, the more you're going to have to retie your knot to fluorocarbon, and your leader line gets shorter, and then as your leader line gets shorter, your line's more visible to the fish. So I just think from the standpoint of a time management, it's a lot quicker. And I wouldn't throw it just if it was a time management deal if I didn't feel it was strong and a good knot. I mean, I wouldn't risk that. But like I said, I fish tournaments for a living. That's the knot I throw, Palomar knot on braid and monofilament, and it works really good for me. So anyway, quick tip, hope that helps you guys out, and we'll see y'all later.